here we are in this, I feel like this is an interim week, right? Like I'm going to start talking about heading towards Christmas next week. Next week's the first Sunday of Advent. But this week we're kind of in the middle. And so I thought, what's a great way to start but to talk about, living from the fullness, right? Because we're all still full. See how I did? Thank you. See how I did that? I'm a little funny that way. But so I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I get to go to this big party every year. I'm very excited about it. It's always really great. We have all sorts of fun games. There's like 60 or 70 people there. It's huge. And there's the best cheesy potatoes I've ever had in my life. I dream about them 363 days now until I get them again. I only let myself eat them once a year. They're so good. And but anyway, so it was interesting for me because here I am going in with somebody else's family, right? They have this big, huge family. Both sides of their family is large, and then they're like me. They have this open idea of family and more family, and just it's not like a closed thing. It's an open and, a yes and. So if you come and you hang out with us, you're family, right? That's basically how it is. And so, but it's always interesting for me to go into these parties because being a minister is kind of funny. Because when you tell people that you're a minister, it immediately goes, oh. I need to get something, I'll be right back. And I'm constantly saying, no, I'm fun. No, I'm nice, I'm fun. I'm not judging you. No, I'm not that kind of minister or whatever. But I had a couple of moments of that at this party, and it reminded me of a story. There's this idea that I'm, supposed to be pious and humble, and you guys who know me are laughing. Yeah, okay. So it reminded me of the story of there's and it's so wonderful when being on the welcome line. And there's a story of a minister who was on the welcome line, and a woman came to him after service and said, "Oh, Pastor, your message today was the best. Oh my goodness, I haven't heard anything as good. It was powerful, it was inspirational, it's transformative, it's changed my life. Thank you so much." And so what do you do with that? The minister was thinking, well, I got to be a little humble on this. And he said, "Oh, madam, thank you very much, but it wasn't me, it was the Lord coming through me." And she's like, "Oh, well, it wasn't that good." Living from the fullness and the truth, And so this week we're looking at how we plant our consciousness in the fullness of life. So often we've got our attention on what's wrong, what's not going right. We fret and we worry about what's not going right for us. We worry about the debts we owe. We worry about the problems that are around us in our families and in the world, and we can easily get whipped up into a frenzy of stress. And what happens is we get mesmerized by the circumstances of our life. And that's really a challenge for us, because what we know is that when we get mesmerized by the circumstance, by the issue, by the challenge, whatever's happening in your world, it's like an anchor that anchors us down into the problem. And there's no way that we can get out of the problem when we're anchored into it. And soon all you can see is the problem, and all you can think of is the problem, and all you can, from your own perspective. And so what it's like building walls. We're building walls around us that we can't see through, we can't see over, we can't get out. We're just stuck in our problem. And the consciousness that created the problem, you can't solve it with the consciousness that created the problem. Einstein said that. And so how do we shift that? How do we change that? We need to shift our view and shift our perspective. I put up this beautiful shot of the moon. Isn't that amazing? I love it. For a purpose, for a reason. I want you to remember this. This is our symbol for today's talk. And you look, it's luminescent, it's glowing, it's beautiful, it's full. And for me, I don't know about you, but for me, this picture brought forward a power and a strength, right? It's solid, it's full, it's beautiful. But this isn't the view of the moon that we get all the time, is it? No. This is the view of the moon we get. You can take a picture. I'm sorry. No, go ahead, take a picture. If I go long, I'm going to blame you. This is the view that we get, right? This is the view of the moon that we get. And it's not, the moon hasn't changed. The moon hasn't changed, our relationship to it has changed. I was pretty proud of myself when I came up with this, by the way, just in case you're wondering. I was so happy when I came up with this. I was like, whoa, this is great. It's going to be a great Sunday. But so the moon doesn't change, but we do. Our relationship to it does. And our relationship to the shadow, to our own shadow changes, right? Because it's our own shadow that is hiding part of that moon. It's nothing but our own creation. It doesn't do anything to the moon. The difference and the change is in us. It's in our relationship. It's in our perspective. It's nothing to do with the moon. The moon is always full. And I can imagine what it would have been like to be the ancient peoples, right? Looking up into the sky and wondering what that means. The moon went away, right? Like we're lucky today because it's full. And uh-oh, half of it's gone. And uh-oh, there's only a sliver. What's going to happen when it's really gone? And then it keeps coming back, and so it comes back and forth, and it probably took a little while to get the rhythm of it, right, when they started noticing that there was a rhythm to it. But even that, it's are we lucky, or are we not, right? Is this a good sign or not? And I can understand how this would be really disconcerting to people who don't know what's happening. Well, this is how our relationship to God is. And I think that that's how a lot of our relationship to God is all the time, no matter what. Because you know what? God is always there in that fullness. I'm going to go put back the full moon so we can see it. Okay? This is God. This is God. God, universe, spirit, again, whatever you want to call it, is always present. It's always in its fullness. It's always supporting, loving, guiding each of us in our lives and in everything that happens. But we're the ones that get in the way to not accept it, to not allow it. We allow our shadow, our issues, our problems, whatever it is, to block out half of it. We are the ones that get in the way of the fullness and the grace of the divine. Breathe that for a second. It's always there. But we can't see it because we are grounded in our problems and we are blocked by the walls that we've built around ourselves. We can't see it. We can't know it. We can't accept it unless we get out of our own way. We are called to get out of our own way and wake up to the fact that just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Just because we're in a different relationship to it doesn't mean that it's not sourcing and supporting us. We don't need to get lucky in any area of our lives. We are already lucky and we are already blessed. We have spent a week, right? We've all spent a week realizing how blessed we are. Right? Give me a nod. Have you? I don't know what you were doing on Thanksgiving, but I hope you were doing more than just eating turkey. Realizing that we are blessed. That there are so many things that are right in our lives. But the fact that you're breathing air and you're awake and you're with us today, hello, there's a million things to be grateful for in that. You know? And so when we get out of our own way, we can start to welcome, to accept, to allow this divine source and support and to be in our lives and to open that channel of divine flow, of the gifts of God. Because let me tell you, worry and fear close off the flow. Judgment of yourself and judgment of others close off the flow. Being attached to our expectations of how things are supposed to be. Anybody have lumpy potatoes? I don't care. I bet they were great. Right? Our expectation, you know what? It closes off the flow. When we can be present with life and allow it and mind what's happening in our life right now for the gifts, for the blessings, that's allowing the divine source and support to move through our experience. But we have to be present with what's happening. We have to engage and live from the fullness, not from the quarter moon, not from the half moon, but from the full moon, from the fullness of our lives. Within each of us, there are two basic drives. There's the human drive and the divine drive. The human drive wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep you secure. It keeps you on a short leash, right? We could call it the ego, that construct of our personality that is given the job of keeping us safe. And so the part of you that says, nope, don't do that, nope, don't try that, is the ego. And it's trying to keep you safe. That human drive is trying to keep you safe. But there's also another drive within you, that's the divine. And the divine drive wants to express, it wants to experience life, it wants to fling itself into the experience and be a channel of creativity. And there's this part of you that wants to bring yourself forward so completely. And those two have to, live together. It's like the odd couple completely. Because one's like, let's go and experience the day. And the other one's like, no, it might rain. And the other one's like, no, let's go look at the mountain vista. And the other one's like, oh my God, you're too close to the edge. It's like, no. And there's these two parts that are alive within us. But the issue is this: you can't live from the fullness if the human drive is driving a car. You will not be able to live this spiritual life, this fully engaged life from the fullness, from the wholeness, from the totality of the presence of Spirit that has created you and sent you on your way to be its divine expression in the world if you're afraid of who you are. Those intuitive ideas, those inspirations, that's God inside of you. Those big dreams that sometimes we don't even let ourselves dream, right? Sometimes there's times when we don't even let ourselves think what we really want, or who we really want to be, or what we really want to do. Sometimes we don't even let ourselves get to that place because it feels like it's so big, and there's too much, and I'm not of myself, can't do any of it. Well, you can't by yourself, but with the divine, you can do anything. Because the Spirit not only gives you the idea, it doesn't only just implant that drive, that impression, and I don't just mean ideas to do certain things. I mean that drive to want to be who you are, to express who you are, even just on that level. God doesn't plant those things within you without giving all of the ways that it will unfold and work out for you. It not only plants the seeds of inspiration, but it makes the way straight for each and every one of us. And so we have to allow ourselves that time to listen to that intuitive nature, to be present with who we really are, to allow this life to be fully expressed. So, if we hadn't risen as humans, to be the human inclination to be safe, if we had never gone past that, we'd still be living in caves, if we were alive at all. We survived over the millennia because of our defense was our creative ability, was our ability to think, our ability to connect to the intuitive flow of ideas. That's what got us out of that predicament. When we think of only being safe, we stifle our inner urges. We stifle our desire for growth and for advancement. But if we connect to our inner knowing and participate in the spiritual practice and connect to the divine truth of who we are, then we are guided, we are inspired, and those ideas, those concepts, those possibilities start to bring us out of the problem and break down those walls. We have to trust it, and we have to listen to it. So often we try and think ourselves into a solution. And that just makes my brain hurt, Our brain is a great muscle, and it's really important, and it's a channel to connect to that inner voice. There's a difference between thinking ourselves out of an issue and opening to the divine inspiration for it. See the difference in that? Yes. So often we think. It reminds me of Winnie the Pooh. Think, right? Think. No solution ever comes that way. Oh, there was a quote. Oh, I had it right at the tip of my tongue. It went over there. Yeah, okay. I think it went. Something like Einstein said. Was it Einstein? Somebody brilliant said, I think all day long, and then I go and do something that I love, and the solution comes to me. Okay, so that's kind of where I'm headed with it. Let's just say I said that. Okay. Paraphrasing somebody else. I give credit. But that's the thing, is that when you try and work something out, you have no idea how to do it, but then you go and you sit in nature, or you go and take your dog for a walk, or you go to the park, or you go to the beach, or you go do something that you love, and then all of a sudden you can see it completely clearly. It falls in your lap. We need to click out of our idea of fixing and making everything right and allowing that divine life to come forward, to come forth. The question is, can you find a way to connect with the fullness of life no matter what's happening in your experience? That's what we're called to do. I found a story this week that I wanted to tell you. I'm going to take a sip of water first. About a man who was cleaning up his work at his desk on a Friday. When he noticed an envelope that had not been opened, addressed to him. Apparently it had been placed there while he was on the telephone. He opened it and read it, and to his shock and dismay, it was a notice of termination. His entire department was being eliminated, and his position along with it. After all the years he had given to the corporation, he found himself filled with resentment and a sense of injustice and shock, obviously. Long past his planned time of departure, he sat slumped in his chair in utter despair and defeat. It's been said that the experience of retirement is the greatest shock the system can sustain. And he thought through all of the terrible things that could happen to him. He'd have to sell his house and alter his way of life. He was not really prepared financially for retirement, and yet he was in an age normally considered too old to get another job. Though we don't really believe that, do we? We don't really believe that, but he did. The specter of lack, poverty, and destitution hovered on the horizon. He was in complete fear. Even more severe was the shock of feeling that he was no longer needed, useless. He was done, washed up. He noticed then a small spider on the desk, and he unconsciously brushed it off. And suddenly he was watching with amazement as that tiny creature automatically spun a strand to bear its weight and swung gracefully and beautifully to the floor. He began to wonder why, if this tiny creature could draw forth from within itself a reserve of substance to meet its emergency, why couldn't he do the same? For many hours he sat deep in troubled thoughts that turned gradually to creative meditation. Finally, the conviction came that the source of his supply, his security, was not in the job or the money or the house or land, but in his oneness with the allness of the infinite mind. That's our words, not his, probably. He might be taken from a payroll, but no one could cut him off from the intuitive flow of his own mind. This, he realized, was his lifeline. It was that web that he could spin. This man was of an artistic nature, and being forced to do office work had always bugged him. Figuratively, he had been earning his livelihood by the sweat of his brow. In his spare time, he had done a little writing, which occasionally found publication. He had secretly longed for the opportunity to write for a living. Now, he realized, was that opportunity. So a whole new frame of mind took possession over him. He blessed his retirement and thanked God for the new door that had opened before him. He left the office with a buoyancy and confidence that surprised even himself. Now, it would be good if I could finish the story and report that the man went on to great success as a writer. Well, real life isn't made up of great successes and great failure, but of an infinite number of levels of living in between. And true greatness depends more on inner overcomings than on outer achievements. Our man did accomplish some great things within himself. He gained a new sense of self-mastery, a new sense of satisfaction and happiness, and he did enough good writing to earn a few checks each month, enough to more than double his half-pay retirement income. And so this is the thing. As we are each made in the image and likeness of the Creator, we need to realize when we're not being like the Creator, it creates, right? It expresses, it expands. When we are not being like the Creator, when we are not creating, when we are not expressing, when we are not expanding, then we are doing the opposite. And that's not good. That has repercussions for us. That creates challenge and problems. It creates illness in the body. It creates dissatisfaction and unhappiness in the mind. So when we are moving in the space of being like the Creator, allowing ourselves to be that channel of divine expression, of divine love. I was thinking of this when I was listening to the choir, because these beloved ones love to sing, and you can see it, can't you? You can see it. And even just singing in a small choir in church on Sunday is engaging in a part that is that divine love alive within us. And if that's your passion, I'm so glad you're doing it, because we get to witness it and we get to experience it. And it's not just for them, it's for all of us. And so when we can find those things that we engage with, when we can find those things that we love, then we need to engage in that, use our time creatively, allow ourselves to be that creative expression and expansion of God. That allows us to live from the fullness and not from the lack. But so often we're focused again on what's wrong. I'll be able to do that when I retire. How many times have you heard that? I've heard that a lot. I can volunteer at the center when I retire. I'll do that, yeah. No. We don't wait for that. You don't hold yourself off from the joys of your life. I'll learn, I'll take these kind of lessons, or I'll do this after I retire. You're holding off for something that's just denying your joy, your soul's expression, your joy. And fill in what that is. Maybe it's bass fishing, I don't know. Maybe it's singing, dancing, learning a new skill, trying stand-up comedy for the first time. I don't know. It could be whatever it is for you, but there's something within you that you love that will make you come alive. And that's what we need to find. When you can find that thing that jazzes you up and brings you alive, that's the thing you need to engage with. And it could be as little as, it could be as little as a little thing. It doesn't have to be a big, huge life change. Sometimes we're called to make big, huge life changes. And sometimes we're not. But doing it from the fullness and from the connection to the divine is that which will support you. One of my favorite quotes from Ernest Holmes, and I know I've shared it a lot, is this. He says this: "When things look the worst, is the best time to do your work. The most satisfying time." He says the person who can throw himself with a complete abandon into that limitless sea of receptivity, having cut loose from all apparent moorings, is the one who will always receive the greatest rewards. We will have a fulfilling, full life when we can let go of everybody else's expectations for us, our ideas of how it's supposed to be, our ideas of how we're supposed to show up, connect with the love that's alive within our hearts and dive into that. When we can jump and dive into that presence of who we are, everything opens. That divine channel of source and support opens. Those opportunities show up. The flow and prosperity happen. Our ability to love and to be present with others. Our relationships deepen because of it. It's when we can find the love alive within us and as us. I loved that reading that Beth gave to us today. It's one for all times, not just family weeks. It's one to remember at all times. And so I made a little gift for you today. It's in your program, and we've got some out there if you did not grab a program. And it's a quote that I'm going to put up here, actually. It's an affirmation from Eric Butterworth, and this is what we're going to work with today. So I thought we could say it together, and then I'm going to read it to you. So, together, with power. Ready? I am secure, for I know who I am, a richly endowed child of God. I am secure in all I do, for I know my oneness with the divine process. I am secure in all I have, for I know my treasure is in my mind, not in my things. I live my life from day to day, as if God's supportive substance were as exhaustless and dependable as the air I breathe, which it most certainly is. And so the card that I made you has a full moon on it. So this is our work this week. As we get ready to finish this year, as we get ready to start to think about getting ready for the next year, as we get ready for these holidays of celebrating the light in the times of the darkness, I want you to remember the luminescence of the moon, of that beautiful full moon, as the presence of God in your life. It's always there. No matter when you look up at the sky and see it or not, it's there, ever sourcing us, ever guiding us, ever loving us. And so I want you to close your eyes for a second and take a breath and connect in your heart space and feel this time. Feel it within you as I read it this time to you. I am secure, for I know who I am, a richly endowed child of God. I am secure in all I do, for I know my oneness with the divine process. I am secure in all I have, for I know my treasure is in my mind, not in my things. I live my life from day to day as if God's supportive substance were as exhaustless and dependable as the air I breathe, which it most certainly is. And so let us live from the fullness and take our place in the wholeness of life as the divine gift of God unto the world. And so it is.